This is Pop Culture Yearbook. On this show, we pick pieces of pop culture that were important to us in a given year, and we then dig into those movies, albums, shows, and more. And it is November, and we are going to talk about 1985 this month. We're going way back in time. So we were pretty
DeLorean.
young.
That's the year.
So-
That's the year to go back. If you're going to use a DeLorean, that's the year to go back to.
That's true.
Hey, I don't know who's talking. Nobody was introduced yet.
Oh, I'm Brad.
I'm Pete.
And I'm Kev.
Hopefully our
I
fans know us
actually
by
didn't have
now.
my little script up this time, so I totally blew it.
Oh my
Sorry.
God! Cut.
That's all right. We'll get over it.
I'm going to leave it in there.
Anyway,
Freestyle tonight.
1985, and this is a preview episode because there are 5 weeks in November, and we figured we don't have a ton to say about our memories because it was so long ago and we were so young. And maybe that will make somebody's day because maybe they get sick of us just talking about our memories. Like, won't these guys shut up and get to what I want to hear?
If that's the case, they're gonna love what I gotta say.
Yeah, they're going to love
We got half our audience listens for the topics, and the other half listens for the memories. That's what
That
I
is
found
true.
out.
I think we try to balance it out pretty well. So if you're on one side or the other, just know that we are doing our best for everybody.
That's
That's
right.
right.
For our
All right.
listeners.
So Pete, you sound like you got it all figured out. So why don't you tell us about
Do I, though?
1985?
1985. I was 9 years old. I grew up on a farm, as did both of you.
Mhm.
I lived on a farm until I was 12. So there is a part of me that misses living on the farm because there's a certain like privacy to it, just being there and wide open. I enjoyed mowing the lawn. This is around this time that I started to kind of learn how to mow the lawn. We had 2 huge yards. And we had a riding lawnmower, so it was just like Saturday morning. That was your morning. Just sit out there, and when I got a little older, you crack a beer and
Put the AirPods in, crack
With
the
the
beer,
AirPods, yep.
1985.
That's right. When I was 9, it was fantastic.
Your parents sound
What
cool.
they absolutely were, Brad. So one thing that I do remember was we had like a little tradition every 4th of July shooting fireworks, which was illegal. Maybe I shouldn't say this on the air. They're going to come and get me, right? But if you lived on a farm or on a lake, that's what you could do. If you were in town, you couldn't really do it because it would attract too much attention. But there's a fireworks stand right across the border as you're going towards Brookings, South Dakota. Fireworks were legal in South Dakota, but not in Minnesota. But there was this fireworks stand right on the state line facing Minnesota. So it was clearly marketing towards Minnesota people that would just come, get whatever they need, and then come back, and they would go back. So
Speaking of that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we just went to...
Please
do you know if fireworks are illegal in Iowa too?
I don't know.
Because we went to St. Louis this weekend, and when we got to Missouri, like right across the border in Missouri, there was a giant fireworks like warehouse, and the side of the building went up like 30 feet in the air and had a huge sign. So it clearly made me think of what you're talking about, and like Iowa people probably go across the border to get fireworks, but either that or it's just a huge coincidence and they really love their fireworks in that place.
I doubt it's a coincidence. We'll have to look that up. Maybe our listeners in Iowa can post on our Twitter and let us know what the rule is in Iowa.
Yeah.
Gifford, it looks like
Or I think Gifford might be doing our homework right now while we're talking.
Iowa law permits the purchase of consumer fireworks. They may be used on private property from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. with the exception of July 3rd and 4th. Oh, you have until 11 p.m.
Okay.
Well, does
So that
consumer
sounds like
fireworks mean like the stuff we can buy here too, or does that mean like the big
would
stuff
just
that
mean-
people
No,
want?
the consumer, like I was assuming, like the average consumer.
Okay.
I think it means as opposed to like a city would.
Right, the
would
fire
off,
department,
like-
get those big honking ones that they fire off.
Well, sorry to interrupt, Pete, but you just totally made me make that connection there, and that's what this is all about.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping that we'd talk about Iowa. I don't have a whole lot else to say about 1985 from a pop culture standpoint. I'm not going to get too much into what we're probably going to talk about in our future episodes. But the Friday nights were big. That was appointment TV, especially Dukes of Hazzard. That was I think right in their prime, if I remember correctly.
Actually, I think this was like when the
probably
Dukes of Hazzard ended. I'm pretty sure it was.
Oh,
the
was
last,
it
the
really?
last
I
season,
didn't do the research yet, people, but really, it seems like it went on a little longer than that.
But
I
you know,
was,
it's that time period at that age. That's what we remember is those
it's what
Friday
you
night
look
shows.
forward to,
Yep.
right?
And it
And
technically was
Friday night-
still on.
And Friday night videos, I bet
Yeah.
was big around that time. This was probably right around the time, Brad, that you and I got really into Saturday Night Live too. Or
No, it's more like 87, 88 when I started watching, because this 85 cast was terrible. That's like when Anthony Michael Hall was on, and like John
Oh,
Lovett started
really?
in like 86, and it was, that's the cast that we really watched.
because it was John Lovitz, Phil Hartman, and Dana Carvey,
Jan Hooks.
Jan Hooks, Nora Dunn.
The big thing for us was the Church Lady when that first started, and that was like, I think 87, 88. So
All
sounds
right.
about
Well,
right.
we're not here to talk about 87 or 88.
No, but you brought it up,
So
so.
I did bring it up. I guess I was wrong. So with that, then we can turn it over to Gifford. I'd love to hear your
extensive.
exquisite memories of 1985.
1985. So yeah, we're coming into this podcast tonight and talking about memories. I don't remember a whole lot. I know I was in third and fourth grade, end of third, beginning of fourth grade. So I reached out to my good friends Rhonda and Mike, who I went to elementary school with. They helped me out a little bit.
We love Rhonda and Mike on Pop Culture Yearbook.
Yes, we certainly do. They reminded me that our teachers back then were Mrs. Borgard and Mrs. Pieskey. But other than that, I don't remember a whole lot.
Can't believe you
Rhonda
did.
said actually that we had some kids from Tyler come over for I think third grade. And she said that
Kids
Kari,
from Tyler?
Kari and Katie came over
Kari.
to Russell.
Just two people?
Well, and she thought maybe Annie even. So
No.
she said she has
I
a
don't
class
know.
picture. I don't necessarily remember that. Of course, I don't remember anything. But I would have been a pretty young kid in 4-H at this time. That was one of the big things that we did, especially in the summer. You get your projects ready for the fair for 4-H. We showed, of course, growing up at a dairy farm, we showed cattle at the fair every year. So you'd spend the summer working with your calf, teaching
Should I
it
say
to
something?
Yeah.
I just want to point out that you guys gave me shit about not remembering the end of The Usual Suspects.
Yes.
Gifford, you couldn't remember 1985 without help. 1985, an entire year. I'm just throwing that in there.
The Usual Suspects came out how many years later than
I think Pete
1985?
is really stretching it here to try to
Right.
sound good. I'm not on your side, Pete.
Well,
How do you forget an
Pete-
entire year?
Well, he didn't
I
forget it all. He's talking about cows and
know,
4-H.
I know.
I forgot about an entire co-ed softball season from the early 2000s.
Gifford has been a heavy
That's
drinker
because-
all his life.
that's
He
because
does
you were
not
drunk,
remember
yes.
things.
Again with the heavy drinking.
Blacking out.
Good Lord.
His parents were also very cool,
Yeah, exactly.
mowing the lawn and drinking.
So that was one of the highlights every year, was going to the Lyon County Fair in August.
Oh, yes.
Hanging out at the fair and showing your cow or whatever you had. We also had other projects to do. But yeah, that was kind of some of the stuff that I kind of remembered from 1985. So
I think that was great, Gifford. I
I'm
think
gonna-
that was.
I'm actually kind of with you. There's not a ton that I remembered from
You kind of
1985
downplayed your memories.
specifically.
You did a nice job.
You
there.
did.
Well, thank
You
you.
did.
Thank
I had my joke set up after you said that you had difficulty remembering and needed help, so I had to throw it in.
I like it. Well, we should turn it over now to Steel Trap Mind Brad and see what he's got.
Yes.
This is Brad. I spent 1985 not trick or treating.
Yep. This was prime Halloween depression years for me, I guess. Anyway,
Oh
I
my
was 9
God.
years old like you and living on a farm like you.
This
At
might
this
be the year you
time-
went as a hobo.
I was a much younger than my siblings, but my brother and sister both lived at home still. So we were a full family of 5 living at home.
I think at this time you're still much younger than your siblings.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I that's fine.
Wow, still?
What I actually don't really remember very well, but what I do know about this year is that this was a very, very tough time for our family. But because I was so young, it mostly went over my head. But I know that so we had a dairy farm too, like you, Gifford.
Mhm.
But a couple years before this, we had sold the cows, and so that was not something that we did anymore. Maybe there were cows there for a while still, and we like had them for somebody else, and they did chores. But I never had to do any of that. I was way too young. But we also then basically did not have our farm anymore. We still got to live there, but lost everything in the 80s. Thank you, Ronald Reagan. And then there were other people that used our land and everything and worked there. My dad still did a lot of stuff off and on. And so when I grew up, I felt like we were always farmers, even though, a lot of things had changed and we'd gone through this tough time. So anyway, my parents were wonderful. They did a great job of always staying positive. I never really knew what was going on. Even my brother and sister, who were in like middle and high school at this time, I've heard them both say that especially my sister, that she didn't really realize what was going on either. We're just obviously, kids into ourselves, but still you'd think we would have been a little more aware. So my parents were great, and everything eventually worked out and everything was great. But I know that this was not one of our best years as far as that goes. My other big memory, I have 2 other big memories of this time. One is, and this ties into our episode from last week, this was prime Garfield time right here. This is like when the Garfield books came out every year, and I would look forward to getting that new Garfield book every single year. And so that was a big one. And then this is when I really started to pay attention a lot more to music and sports and movies. Like basically the pop culture stuff we talk about. This is around when I think that really started to take off for me. And a big reason why that happened was because I've talked about this before, but we had a big rotating satellite dish. And so we were able to get all these different channels, and we got MTV. And so we got all this music and all the videos. And so that was very lucky. And so that was another thing that I remember from that year, was starting to kind of like learn a lot more about musicians that I liked and TV shows that I liked. And that ties into my choice for this month too. So if this sounds familiar to anybody, we do have some fans that go all the way back with us. And we did a 1985 episode almost a year ago when we very first started. And that episode is no longer available, but there are a few people who have heard it, and they might be like, what are these guys? Doesn't this sound familiar? And that's because it is familiar. So if you're one of those people, we really appreciate you sticking around with us for all these months.
Yes, we
One
do.
of our lost episodes.
Yeah, the lost episodes.
That was pre-GIF.
Yeah, but
Pre-GIF.
you're one of those people that you love those episodes so much, you worked your way into this podcast. So
We held a lottery, and Gifford was the winner of the fan lottery, where the winner gets to be a host on our podcast.
So I was the winner, and all of you out there are the losers for having to
right.
listen to this.
So for November, we are going to discuss 1985. And so tonight we're just going to quick talk about what we chose. And so as I mentioned, I was really getting I watched a ton of TV as a kid. I love watching TV. I still do. That's why I love talking about this kind of stuff. But this was like the prime time to get into sitcoms, because this was one of the 2 seasons where NBC had what I would call their original must-see lineup, which had The Cosby Show, Family Ties, Cheers, and Night Court, back to back to back to back. That lineup, as far as I can tell in my research, was for 2 full seasons, and then they started moving things around. But that was just a magic time. And The Cosby Show was just kicking off. It was the 2nd season. But that was like the #1 show, and that got all these other shows to be even more popular. And so I would watch them all the time. So what I chose, and we did this on our lost episode, but if you did listen to that one, these are brand new episodes now. I chose a random night from 1985 where those shows ran back to back to back to back, and we watched all 4 of those shows, and we are going to discuss them and see what they were like. So I picked November 7th, 1985, which would have been my wife's 9th birthday that day.
Fun.
That's when these shows aired.
Oh, that's what. All right.
That's one reason. And then we're going to be discussing these. Our episode will come out on November 8th. So it's going to be like, you watch the shows Thursday night and then you go to the water cooler the next day and you talk about them. It's like we did that. We watched them November 7th and we're going to talk about them November 8th. And we're going to see, do these shows hold up? Were there any warning signs with Bill Cosby? And what did we think about those TV shows?
In one episode, I could tell something was wrong.
36 years later, that were such a big part of my life back then. We'll also talk about our favorite TV shows of the year when we do that episode.
Mm-hmm.
So that's coming next Monday.
And then
anything you want to add to that, guys?
No, I think
Okay.
that
Just
pretty much nails it.
It's pretty rare when you don't have a comment to make.
No, you're doing great. Stick
Our
with
next
it.
episode.
Just said though, Brad, I just want to add a comment, and I actually seriously think this. What you just said is a reason why we are more divided as a country today than we were back then. Because back in 1985, everybody would watch the same shows. We'd have the same things to talk about at the water cooler, like you said, the next day. But today, it's like everybody just watches their own thing, and we don't have that sort of glue anymore, Gifford.
I agree
to hold the
that
gears together.
could definitely be one reason out of many, but
There's many.
Not
That's
a
one.
preposterous statement at all, Pete.
Sure.
Why, thank you. I was due for a good one at some point.
It's about time.
Yeah. The scale we judge Pete's statements are preposterous or just not preposterous. That's really there's only 2.
From Park and Rec to acceptable.
Either onto something or I'm on something.
Exactly.
All right. Our next episode after that one is going to be the choice that our friend Dave had made, and that is going to be The Breakfast Club, which was a huge movie that year that we all, a little bit young for, but not long after, we all, I'm sure, watched and loved and have watched probably many, many, many times throughout the years. So we're going to talk about The Breakfast Club, see how that holds up. We're going to talk about John Hughes movies and our favorite movies of the year. So that'll be our biggest movie based. Oh no, we're going to talk not about movies that year. Sorry. We're going to talk about music.
Top music, yep.
Because The Breakfast Club, that has a pretty good soundtrack as well and one of the better songs of the 80s. Episode 4 will be about movies. And Gifford, why don't you share what that's going to be?
Well, it's actually going to be episode 3. No, 4.
Well, I'm
Sorry,
counting
the
tonight's
preview.
Episode
Sorry.
4 counted.
Man,
My
math's
God,
never
can't you
been my-
count?
No, I can't. So episode 4.
They taught it when you were in 3rd grade, and that year's a total
He
blank.
forgot it all.
And I don't remember any of it. Sorry, Mrs. Borgard. So episode 4 will be we're going to cover Better Off Dead.
Yes.
So
Oh,
this is a
God,
movie
yes.
that I have never seen. This is my choice.
You haven't? Hold on.
I
You
have-
have not?
Never
No.
seen this movie. I thought of a
Oh,
few different
God.
movies to go with. One of which was Back to the Future, but everybody's covered Back to the Future. I
It's
don't
too
know if there's
cliched.
Yeah, I don't know if anything new could necessarily be said about it. Rocky 4 would have been a good choice for me, but after talking to Brad, Pete, and Dave, they were big proponents of this movie. I'm looking forward to doing research on something that I haven't seen before. So I am looking forward to seeing it for the first time and then being able to join my other 2 co-hosts and really dig into it and see how they felt about it, along with having my fresh eyes take on it as well. And we
You
will.
will not be disappointed. Whoa.
But that, like you
Jinx.
just said, it will be interesting since you have not seen it before to see if you do view it differently.
Mhm.
Compared to what we're used to. I will just say I watched this movie for the first time in a long time. I don't know, several months ago. I think I listened to a podcast about it probably, and I decided to watch it. And I was like, this movie is awesome. This movie holds up better than so many others. Like there's some some really cool stuff going on in this movie. It's not just a stupid comedy. So I'm really excited to hear both of your guys' thoughts on it, especially you, Giff.
Yeah. Well,
Thanks,
and the
Brad.
other thing we'll also be covering in that 4th episode will be the top movies of the year. So that one we'll do our top 5, Pete and I, and Brad will do top 15.
You always do more than 5.
I know. I get it from
But just so
watching
you know,
Brad.
this year had a bunch of good movies, so it
Mhm.
will be more than 5. I'll just let you know right
Yeah.
now.
Yes.
Hey,
what are we
Pete, what's
do
going to
for-
end our year or our month?
Well, we're going to be well into the holiday season by the time the last episode airs. It'll be just after Thanksgiving, I think, if my calendar
Yes, it'll
is
be the
correct.
Monday. It'll be Cyber Monday.
Oh, Cyber Monday.
Yes.
And what better time to be talking about Nintendo, which was actually, it came out in 1985. So that's why we're doing it in the 1985 episode. But I've got tons and tons of great memories. Some with you, Brad, especially playing Super Mario Brothers, or the original Mario Brothers, rather, in the arcade in Sioux
Oh, yeah.
Falls, if you
In
remember
Sioux
that.
Falls,
That's how we
baby.
started. That might have been 1985. We could talk about that a little bit when we stayed up there, but maybe a little bit later. I don't know. But in any event, we'll talk about Nintendo. I've already been able to save the princess earlier this year. I think, Brad, you did too. Gifford, you're going to take a crack at it.
I'm
so
going to take a crack at it.
tune
I saved
in.
the princess with and without warp zones, by the way. So that's your challenge, Giff.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't do it without warp zones.
I know you
I
didn't.
always do that. Yeah. Okay. So tune in to that episode on, what's the date going to be? November
29th.
20 something? 29th?
Yeah.
Tune in
November
November
29th.
29th to find out if Gifford was able to save the princess. We
Yes.
should do a live podcast while you're playing, and we could do a play-by-play commentary. That would be amazing.
That'd be one
What
way
I
to
should
it.
do is drive down to your place, Pete. Brad will drive up, and we'll do it right. I'll play the game at your place and live podcast. That'll be perfect.
What we do need to do is do a lot. You could be the commentator, Gifford, because you've got experience sports commentating.
That's
Brad
true.
and I play double dribble one another against.
Oh, yes.
That would be outstanding.
That'll be, if we ever get like a Patreon, that'll be our first episode. If you really care about this, that's the one you'll listen to. Gifford announcing a double dribble Nintendo game between Pete and me.
right.
God, that would be amazing.
Oh my God, it's going to end 122 to 120. I know already. Be a high
It's
scoring
amazing.
affair.
It's amazing. So I think that is what you're going to see this month, and we've got our memories out of the way. So if you don't like our memories, you're going to love this month because those episodes are going to be really hardcore on the content that we chose.
That's right.
I don't like my memories.
How's therapy coming, Pete?
This is my therapy.
Okay.
It really is.
Well,
All
awesome.
right.
I'm looking
All
forward
right,
to
Anything
it.
to
is that gonna
add?
wrap it up? Is that going to wrap up this mini episode?
I think this preview mini episode is ready to be put out there.
Well,
Perfect.
hey, don't forget to like and comment. Now is a great time to follow us on Twitter and Facebook if you're not already. Be sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or whatever your platform of choice is. And let's wrap it up with our favorite band, Preacher Row.
Love it.
Bye.
Bye.
guys.
Standing on my own 2 feet. No one's here to comfort me. Sorry for what I have done. Sorry that your son is gone. 7 steps and it will be my